Business Matters starts now.
Hey, good evening. Business Matters tonight. Big topic, really important topic, very serious topic for Business Matter. We're talking about what some refer to as assisted suicide. And I got to say, we're going to get into the show, but I got to give you Barbara Mancini props. 60 Minutes. You're of 60 Minutes fame. You went from, who was your anchor at that time? Who did you?
Anderson Cooper.
So you went from Anderson Cooper to me in this world. But all right, we're off
Moving up.
What's that?
Moving up.
That's what I like to hear. Let me give you an applause for that. Anyway, Barbara, to get back to this, this is a serious subject. You said you've been through a lot. In fact, maybe if you could really quickly for the audience tell your story, if you don't mind, and if they didn't see 60 Minutes, and it was a big feature.
Okay. I endured a year-long prosecution on the charge of aiding the attempted suicide of my dying 93-year-old father. I had handed my father his pain medicine at his request. It was a partly filled 1-ounce vial of morphine. And he removed the cap and he consumed what was left in the bottle. My father was under home hospice care at the time, and a hospice nurse arrived later that day. I told her what my father had done. Mm-hmm. And this was Hospice of Central Pennsylvania. The hospice nurse and her supervisor insisted that my father be taken to the ER to be treated for an overdose. My father was not unconscious. He was drowsy. He was able to answer questions. He was able to follow commands. He had advance directives, a written advance directive that said he wanted no life-prolonging treatment. Mm-hmm. I was his legal health care proxy. He had a standing do not resuscitate order. Mm-hmm. I tried in vain to assure that his wishes were carried out the way he wanted them. But the hospice called 911. Police arrived and then paramedics. And against my father's expressed wishes, he was taken to the hospital to be treated. And I was arrested then and there in the house. And I was charged with aiding an attempted suicide.
So again, you're a person that's never been in trouble in your life and never
ever.
All right, so I guess the question I have, Michael, I want to ask you, when you hear that story, this really is about principle, obviously, but it gets sort of jaded or faded a little bit and not clear.
Well, the first thing that was not clear was exactly what happened there, and there was never any evidence that Barbara was ever guilty of violating the assisted suicide law in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Here you have a situation. I was a hospital administrator for 31 years in the Air Force and in Harrisburg, and I can tell you that when a person is under hospice care, you're supposed to allow them to die in comfort in their own home. A hospice nurse should not be coming in calling ambulances, but the first responders are required by law to do what they have to do if they are called in a situation like that. The whole thing was a travesty.
So real quickly, then I'll go down. So while you feel for what she's been through, that doesn't change how you feel, though, about the ability for the agreement with assisted suicide. Is that correct? Or?
Well, yeah, we're not talking about assisted suicide here. In Barbara's case, it wasn't assisted suicide. She was acquitted after this long process.
Alan, your thoughts on this? So you hear this?
Well, I just think that can I just start with a little mantra that I hear all over society. I mean, I'm a wheelchair user, so this is how it goes. Alan, I'm sorry you're in a wheelchair. You must be very brave to do what you do. If I was like you, I'd want to kill myself. Those are the kind of things that we all know are out there. They're within my family, they're within my extended family. Mm-hmm. What we're looking at here, when we're trying to think about making something a law, mm-hmm. right, or maybe making it a right, is we're using that ignorance and that misplaced sympathy, misplaced compassion, misplaced pity, and we're making that the basis of making a law.
So are you saying you're concerned we're going out on a slippery slope?
I'm saying that as a disabled person, I'm very scared at where this is going to go. Right, is it going to go as far as Switzerland, where anyone can commit suicide? Is it going to go as far as Nazi Germany, where disabled people are going to be euthanized?
So that's a good point. So the concern, Stuart, is, okay, now pretty much we can start picking and choosing who should be around, who should be on this earth, for lack of a better term.
Well, I don't think it's simply down to who should do the picking.
But the question is, where does it start and stop, I think, what I'm saying.
Well, I think it starts with people who are terminally ill or totally disabled as a result of Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. And that program is costing United States taxpayers, as of 2009, over $12 billion a year. The stays in...
Are you saying that we're not worth, we're not worth the cost? I mean, you're saying that people out there who don't choose your way out are not worth the cost. Isn't that where it's going to go if we have this as a law?
It is not worth the cost to... for the taxpayers to bear these costs.
So in essence, the question is, are we putting a number on this? And I don't think that's what you're saying, but I think that's your concern. This is going to be a great show. Really important topic. Be right back. Business Matters. Talk about assisted suicide.
You're watching Business Matters, because if it's business, it matters. Want to enjoy the show on the go? Subscribe to our podcast. Go to www.wfmz.com/Business Matters for more information. Now, back to Tony Iannelli.
Hey, we are back, Business Matters, and again, we've covered a lot of topics, but I can't think of one any more serious than what we're on right now in terms of people's lives and where they go from here. So, Alan, again, I think what you're saying is you're worried that this is the beginning, the slippery slope that says who should be here, who shouldn't, who picks, who chooses.
Well, I mean, this is a worldwide, thing that's going on. If you look at places like Switzerland, you'll see that anyone can commit suicide and ask for the pill. You don't have to have any diagnosis, you don't have to go to any doctor, you don't have to go to any psychiatrist. In Holland, it's a similar thing. I mean, some of the arguments that I made for this, you've got to be an adult, 18. Why have you got to be an adult? Why not be a 6-year-old who's got cystic fibrosis, who's in all the pain? I mean, where does this stop? And what I'm saying is, it's based on this idea that being a disabled person, you must be miserable. I'm the least miserable person I know. And the point about that is we can adjust. Life is all about adjustment. It's all about adaptation. And if people are, brought up so ignorant about our lives and what our experiences really is, we shouldn't to be pitied. And we don't need the compassion. What we need is better services and better counselling for people who are feeling depressed about being a disabled person.
Okay, so Barbara, but you live this in a whole different universe. Again,
yes.
you
well,
had...
First, I want to say
ahead,
I am not unsympathetic to people with disabilities. I have a younger sister who's severely disabled. She would never be a candidate for death with dignity. I have become an advocate.
And she would not be a candidate for two reasons, not only morally, from the law's perspective.
From the law's perspective, because she doesn't have
that choice. She
is not mentally competent to make a decision for aid in dying.
Okay.
And the aid in dying laws have strict safeguards, which include you have to be a mentally competent adult and you must have a terminal diagnosis, not a disability.
Right.
And you must be screened for depression or mental health reasons. But I have become an outspoken advocate for aid in dying for these reasons. First, in the states where aid in dying is legal, end-of-life care has improved dramatically. My father had very poor end-of-life care, even under hospice care.
And he wanted to go, right? He said...
Yes, he did. He was ready to go. He never had expressed any ideas about committing suicide. Right. So he did not have his symptoms treated sufficiently.
So we could have agreement here that we could have had better services, right?
Absolutely. And where aid in dying is legal, end-of-life care is better.
Services, right?
And the second reason I'm in favor of aid in dying is that it will prevent misuse of these laws that prosecute people for aiding suicide.
And you lived it.
I lived it, and it was horrible. And it was horrible for my father. He endured 4 days of unwanted medical treatment before he eventually died.
But there was a time where you thought, I know you felt like, but you could have, there was in your mind, you could have gone to jail because of this. And
they wanted to put me in prison.
All right.
The problem with the law that's been proposed in Pennsylvania that has gone in other places, for example, Vermont was the latest state to adopt the same law a year ago. By the way, Vermont adopted this law a year ago, and since then, only 8 people have even requested a lethal dose of medication. 2 of them have died of natural causes, and nobody has actually taken it. The hospitals have gone against it up in Vermont. The doctors have gone against it. Nobody's supporting this. The American Medical Association is against it. Everybody's against it.
If someone has the ability to do it when the time comes, is sort of like an insurance policy.
No, the point
only
is...
less than 10% of the people in Oregon that have been approved have done it.
No, the point is that in a law like this, when you say that a person who's terminally ill, who has 6 months to live, now has this opportunity to kill themselves, basically, what do? You have stigmatized every single person. All of your viewers who are sitting at home right now, Tony, watching this, who have already been told you have a terminal diagnosis and it's going to kill you, they are going to feel under this law like, well, now, but boy, do I have a duty to die? Do I have a duty to die?
Should I choose? No one is coerced. No one is coerced.
That's what's exactly.
So that's your point. That
That's where we're
if the
going.
law exists, when you get sick, you have a duty to die. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Why would you stay around?
Barbara.
Well, because it depends on your quality of life at the
Quality
time.
of life is
the quality of
paramount.
life is a
All right, I'll get you
determining
down. Let me just get
factor.
this.
Who decides quality of life?
Right.
Who's
Yeah, I know.
got quality of life here?
Hey, excuse me, don't start pushing him off that ramp, for God's sake.
The
Anyway,
individual
go
decides.
I just want to go back to this thing, right? Let's get something.
Okay.
I've read the whole bill that's been proposed in Pennsylvania. First of all, doctors, I know people who've been, my father-in-law, I came to this country because my wife, we were living in England, father-in-law had 6 months to live. He lived another 3 years. And he died surrounded by his family in a very comfortable and
But
peaceful way.
was it 3 years of comfort or
So
3
in
years
other
of
words,
pain?
doctors get the diagnosis wrong to start with, 6 months to live. It's one of those things that you can never tell.
Okay.
Secondly, if you look at the Oregon figures, which I looked at again yesterday from the Department of Health, right, out of all the people who've died, which is 750 in 17 years, only, I think it's less than 6% of them ever went to a psychiatric evaluation. So that safeguard isn't being used in Oregon. That's been circumnavigated. And then it comes to the doctors. The doctors, over 50% of the people's doctors who they went to get the form signed were not the family doctor.
Okay.
So in other words, it's somebody who didn't even know them.
But wouldn't that be because Alan...
So in other words, for 2 visits to 2 different doctors who don't know you for half an hour, you can get this form signed. And then you've got on top of that, you've got the fact that I'm sure that Barbara's family is a loving, caring family, but we all know out there are other families out there which aren't so loving and caring.
Okay.
And I'm worried about people being coerced into doing this.
I don't think anybody's arguing
because you have a pill bottle at home.
that the bill should include the safeguards that you're referring to.
One at a time. You got to go one at a time.
Sorry.
No, please go ahead. Keep going.
I don't think we have an argumentative point here. Everybody agrees that whatever the bill that could be passed should have as many safeguards as possible in there. We are not saying you should open suicide shops where anybody can walk in and say, I don't feel good today, I'd like to die.
But most of the people who have signed up in Oregon have come to a doctor who's recommended by Choices for Compassion. Right? Those are the people who they're going to. They're going to find your doctors who you approve to do it. That might not be called a suicide shop, but what you're saying is you're putting your sign
have actually committed suicide.
Go ahead. Say that again. Say that again.
What percentage of the people that have gotten approved to commit suicide in Oregon have actually committed suicide?
Well, I think, as far as I can remember, I haven't got the figures in front of me.
I know the percentage.
Go, Barbara.
Since the 17 years that it was passed, 0.2% of the people who have died in Oregon have used aid in dying.
Okay.
So it's a very low percentage. So any argument about a slippery slope is moot as far as I'm
Tony,
concerned.
What's going on in Pennsylvania right now is you do not have a groundswell of people in Pennsylvania who want to have assisted suicide legalized in the state. What you have is the Hemlock Society.
No, that's not
They're
true.
not the Hemlock Society. They changed their name to Compassionate Choices, are coming into this state from the outside to try and run this agenda through Pennsylvania on the citizens of Pennsylvania.
Barbara, go ahead.
But
Barbara, go ahead. I'm going to go to commercial.
2013 Gallup poll. 70% of people
Barbara.
favor aid in dying.
Say it again.
And that includes Pennsylvania. 2013 Gallup poll.
So never mind. But I want to make
I don't
the point.
believe your
Never
contention.
mind the legislation. You're saying this is about your compassion for someone that no longer wants to go through the pain and suffering.
Listen, pain and suffering can take many forms. It can be physical pain. It can be a feeling that your life has no quality anymore. So that is a form of suffering, too.
All right, we got to unfortunately go to commercial. Stay with us. Great show. Business Matters. Be right back.
You're watching Business Matters, because if it's business, it matters. Want to voice your thoughts on this week's topic or guests? Sound off on social media. Use the hashtag BusinessMattersTV. That's hashtag BusinessMattersTV. Now, back to Business Matters.
Hey, we are back, and we got another special guest with us, Jason Vanderberg. I mean, look, if your name's Jason Vanderberg, you're going big in life. I don't care what happens. But I want to ask you. We've talked a lot about the legal side. I want to talk about the moral side. I know you're very involved in your church, with evangelical church, where I think you believe that. Well, why don't you talk about the? I don't want to speak for you. Go ahead.
Well, in regards to this issue, Tony, we take a premise that the Lord is in control of all of our lives. That our lives do not belong to us, that God, the Scriptures say, is the author and the finisher of our faith, that the Scriptures also say that God had a plan, that He knew our end from our beginning. And God has a plan for all of us. I'll tell two quick stories. There's a man who I know who's my great friend, and he was 90 pounds. He was on hospice, ridden with cancer, and they told him that he was going to die. And if he would have chosen to take the assisted suicide approach, he never would have walked off of that hospice bed. Now today, he is the owner and proprietor of the largest growing funeral home in the Lehigh Valley.
Did he want to die, I guess is the question.
He wanted to die.
Okay, he was going to make that choice.
But his belief is that God had a plan for him, that it was not his time to die. He could have took that approach, and he never would have been able to fulfill the destiny that God had for him to this day.
I'll get back to your second.
I'd like to address that.
Please.
You have every right to believe what you want in a religious way or a moral way about death with dignity. But should your beliefs form the basis of a social policy that profoundly affects many, many other people who don't share your beliefs? And my answer to that is no. It's not right to enshrine your religious beliefs into social policy that affects so many people who don't share that.
But isn't on the other side then? Wouldn't I be able to say, from my point of view, your beliefs about this right that you think we should have are just the same thing that you shouldn't be imposing those beliefs?
Well, no one is
I would
coerced
never want anybody
medicine
to impose what happened to you on. I would not wish that on anybody what happened to you. I wanted just to make sure that where I am on that one. But I do not think that the solution to that is to have this policy that's been proposed in Pennsylvania, which is so full of loopholes for people to do all sorts of things, for like spouses to kill spouses, for spouses to kill somebody else. That potion. Well, I just said that. It says. Let me be clear. Tell me where I'm wrong. I've read it from page to page. It says two doctors shrink. Then after that, if you're approved, you will then be issued a potion. That potion you take when you want. You don't have to take it on that day. No one needs to be in the room with you, or people can be in the room with you.
Right.
So that sits in your medicine cabinet, and anything can happen to that.
But isn't that, in effect, Alan, freedom of choice, for lack of a better term, that the person can, in fact, choose? Forget additional people. I guess the question is, even from the spiritual side.
Well, let's talk about the spiritual side and what you believe.
Okay.
And you're entitled to that belief.
Yes, sir.
And you're saying that God has a plan for all of us. Yes, He also has a plan, I guess, therefore, for the innocent people that are in prison and get the chair, and we later find out through DNA that they were innocent. What was His plan there?
I agree, and that all ties into choice. We have choice. God has even given us choice.
These people didn't have a choice.
Well, for the believer, God gives us free choice, and for those who don't even believe, they also have a choice. Now, this is a topic that we have that can provide some really dangerous stuff in our country. Aside from anything spiritual or aside from personal thoughts, this could become something that is a travesty. Why? Number one, because this potion might be available for folks to have, like how we have drugs these days where there are substances that are not legal, individuals are able to get, and we could find ourselves many people having accidental death and different type of deaths that really should not occur.
So, but isn't it then all of our jobs to make sure that whatever law eventually is passed, if there is a law passed, that is within these things that you're talking about? No travesty. You don't want a travesty.
Can I just say that before we get to sort of killing people or going down that road, which I think is the last resort, don't you think we should be improving the services? I mean, we're campaigning in Pennsylvania. Let me just say one thing. We're campaigning in Pennsylvania for a thing called the Community First Choice Option. It means that people who are living in nursing homes who can live in the community can get out and get support they need to do that. The last governor, has not done that. This governor's promised to do it. Now, we're on that campaign.
Let me ask a question on this side, though. We were talking about you might if. Again, back to the person that's been suffering and has been in pain, do they have the right to say, I don't want to go through this?
And, no, we do have
There is
hospice
ways
care.
to stop the suffering.
What medication you're talking about?
Medication for pain.
Okay, go ahead. Anybody want to fight that fight, or do you want me to?
I will
go ahead,
fight it
please.
because certainly in my father's case, there wasn't even an adequate attempt made to address his suffering. But palliative care cannot relieve suffering in 100% of the cases.
Okay.
It's not
Pretty much.
absolute.
Or it consists of drugging the people up
To unconsciousness.
so that they don't know where they are, who they are, and is it a profit-driven motive? Is it a hospice profit-driven?
So that's a good point.
When they die, which is
We are not talking about people with disabilities. This has to be a mentally competent, determined to be terminally ill by two physicians. Now, yes, there's always room that someone can be wrong. There's always room that when you opt to have a treatment to improve your life, that it can go wrong.
All right, I got to go to commercial real quick. I got to go to commercial.
Bad days.
All right, I want to Jason.
On a bad day, you might make the wrong decision.
All right, quick comment on Jason. We're going to commercial.
I'll just say this. I serve as a visitation minister of a church, visit many folks, hospice, hospital, things of that sort. And my knowledge is that hospice care medication that is provided does, in fact, keep people comfortable until the time that they pass away.
All right, stay with us. Very good show. Very good. Very, very good principled show. Be right back. Business Matters.
You're watching Business Matters, because if it's business, it matters. Miss an episode of Business Matters? Catch up online. Go to www.wfmz.com/Business Matters to watch the most recent episodes. Now, back to Tony Iannelli.
Hey, we're back. Limited time, so we're going right to it. So, Barbara, I guess one question I want to ask when I hear Jason, what do we say to people of faith that feel like, okay, we shouldn't play God, I guess is the question. Your thoughts on that, I guess.
No one is asking a person of faith to access death with dignity if they don't believe in it. But the other part of this question is, does a person of faith have the right to determine what people who don't share their beliefs are able to do at the end of their lives?
All right, very good point.
I'd also like
Please.
to ask him to define the word comfortable. They keep the people comfortable.
Yes.
So are you saying to me that you believe that a family or the government should spend somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000 a month to keep someone, quote, comfortable, which generally means asleep in a coma or unable to have any interplay with anybody comes to see
And you're
them?
with these people. You're a visitor.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
visitation.
And what I will say is that we should never put a dollar amount on human life in any circumstance.
I didn't put a dollar amount on human life.
But to answer your question, sir, yes, you did. You just did. But what I do believe is that comfortable is medicated, yes, but still in their right mind to know that their family is there until the Lord comes in.
They're not comfortable
all right, we got
anymore?
1 minute to go. Stuart Chalfin, your 15 seconds. Parting thoughts.
My parting thoughts, unfortunately, this gentleman who I'm about to quote, I would have liked to have heard what he means when he said on August 12, 2013, that compassion and choices preys upon the vulnerable.
Okay.
What does that mean?
All right, Barbara, your parting thoughts.
I hope to make aid in dying legal, transparent, and safe in all 50 states. People deserve that choice. It should be requested by mentally competent and terminally ill people, and it should never be imposed on someone who doesn't believe it's the right thing.
Jason.
I believe that like every process in life, we should let the death process take its course.
Alan Holdsworth, close us out.
I think we should be campaigning for better services so that people, most of the things that people choose when they commit suicide, as according to the Oregon statistics, are things which can be fixed by improving services and improving attitudes towards everybody, including disabled people.
All right, great show, a great group here. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for being with us. And don't forget, if it's business, it matters. We'll see you all next week.